Ladies and gentlemen, ATDF Everything in That Shelf presentation. You're now rocking with TDF Everything. Spoiled Rotten.
Spoiler alert.
Welcome back, everybody. It's me, Daniel. Ben is not here, but I do have a very special guest, one I'm very excited about. Victor Stiff, you are the senior critic at That Shelf. I guess that's how we met at That Shelf. Tomato Meter approved critic, TFCA's 2019 Emerging Critic Award recipient, and the creator of Dope Black Movies, a channel that I look forward to new content coming out from. I watched everything again today just so that it was fresh in my mind, but I am really excited. I guess with that, you're trying to help people find their new favorite movie. And I've definitely taken, like, for His House, I definitely took your suggestion. I'm going to be watching that probably after this. And I had seen Concrete Cowboys, but I was excited about the other stuff you talked about, especially in your Sundance Film Festival wrap up. So I'm really happy you're doing that, and I hope you continue.
Thanks so much for having me on, and I'm glad you enjoyed it. It's just an opportunity to celebrate movies that don't always get the most mainstream spotlight.
Mhm.
And kind of, if I can put some movies on some people's radar or make them look at films in a new way, I've done my job.
Yep. I don't know how His House wasn't on my radar, but that was definitely one where I was like, oh, okay. And even before that, you put 40-year-old version on my radar, so thank you for that as well.
Oh, I saw both of those movies. Well, I saw 40-year-old version at Sundance, and I literally ran home from the theater to like try and write up a review and knock it out really quick. I'm like, people need to know about this film. This woman's going to be a star. His House, like every festival, there's always that one movie for scheduling conflicts you just can't see, and it was His House, and it ate at my soul for like a year. And Netflix didn't release it until Halloween, so I just lived with not having His House in my life for 10 months, and it was worth the wait.
Yeah, I've had a couple movies like that this year that I like just because I couldn't really move anywhere. I think for me, not that it's in the same vein as Dope Black Movies, but Promising Young Woman was definitely one where I was like, I can't believe I can't see this until they bring it out to everyone. Like I was so sure I was going to be able to see it in 2020.
Yeah, that was it came out Sundance 2020, the same year as His House, and it didn't drop in Canada until like November or December, right?
It was December, and it was right before the lockdown. So like I think when it was in theaters, it was like there was one showing I could have seen, which obviously I didn't because I was celebrating Christmas, and then I had to wait till like February when it came out on POV. Or yeah.
There's one more, since we're talking about Sundance 2020. There's a movie called Zola. Definitely going to be a dope black movie. They just released a new trailer for it. I have no idea when it comes out, but please keep that on your radar.
I am looking forward to that movie. I've watched. I don't know if I've seen the new trailer, but I've watched what I feel like is two different versions of the trailer, and it definitely has my attention. I'm a big fan of Coleman Domingo, but I also like the lead who's playing, I assume, the bartender turned dancer.
Oh yeah. Trust me, this one is going to be worth the wait. I can't wait to have some conversations about this film. It's wild.
Okay. Well, that's definitely on my radar. Is something that when it's available, I will definitely be watching right away. Well, we didn't. I don't even know how I was going to transition, but the transition is we're here to talk about Mortal Kombat 2021 today. That is the main idea here. I guess I always start with what was your like initial reaction after you were done the movie?
I'm just going to quote what I said in my review. This movie, it blew my mind, but it didn't always blow it for the right reasons.
That's a good way of putting it.
It's one of those movies where so much happens, but nothing really happens at the same time. It's all the things.
So yeah, that was my reaction. Is that I think for the most part, I like to go into movies without reading anybody's opinion just quite yet, because I don't want to go in and have that things. So you are someone that I read the reviews after the fact, and I enjoy that experience. But I did see just on Twitter somewhat like the headline was like, "Oh, it's boring," and I was like, "No, it
What?
won't be. It won't be." And I don't think it is a boring movie, but I do think that maybe, as you said, you feel a bit like there was more they could have done. Like there's that element of, well, I think the big thing, and we don't really do non-spoiler spoilers, it's all spoilers. The big thing is that they never actually get to Mortal Kombat. Like it's all a recruitment type thing and them learning their powers. So you do, at least I did feel like, oh, we never get to the tournament.
Okay, so we're all entitled to our own opinions, but whoever said that Mortal Kombat is boring should have their Twitter profile, their password revoked. Like Kung Lao throws his hat, it turns into a buzzsaw, and then he throws someone over the buzzsaw like he's splitting lumber. Like how you could put that in the English Patient, and the English Patient wouldn't be boring. Like what's wrong with that person?
It is not a boring movie. That I don't agree with that at all. It was in my head while I was watching it that I was like, oh, like, so, and I said that to say maybe that's why I enjoyed it more than I thought I would, because I'm like, oh yeah, it's not boring. It is a fun movie.
Yeah, I can see someone saying I don't care about this movie because it really was a love letter to the fans, and there's a lot of Easter eggs and references, and there's things if you've never played the games or seen the earlier movies, they wouldn't make sense. So I can see someone like sitting there and watching it from a distance, but even going in cold, like this movie is just insane. There's something to at least grab your attention.
One thing I thought was good, and I don't know if this is part of the games. I must admit that I'm kind of like a Mortal Kombat 3, and I think Mortal Kombat 1 through 3, and then like they did the versus the DC universe. So I think that's my experience with Mortal Kombat. I thought that the idea of having the, like, not birthmark, but the actual dragon mark, that's kind of your stamp of approval to be in the tournament. And then beyond that, you have to learn, I don't remember the name they used, but you have to learn how to use your power or how to summon your power. I feel like that's enough for anyone who doesn't actually know this stuff to still feel engaged and like there's like a journey to go on.
But it's such a wild concept because you can't be allowed to enter the tournament unless you're born with this thing, which means it's like, are you a slave to your destiny? Like you must become a fighter. Like what if you want to be an accountant, but you have this dragon tattoo on your neck? Like you have to be a fighter, but then the main character is a fighter who's born with it. He comes from the lineage of Mortal Kombat warriors, and he's a terrible fighter. Like he's getting his ass kicked in a mixed martial arts match when we meet him. It's so many odd decisions.
Yeah, I mean, you do through Sonya Blade learn that you can take it from people though. So if you really wanted to, you could get one.
But that's awful too. Like you take the strong female lead, and she's not even good enough to qualify. Like she has to fight to get into the inner circle.
That's true. That was, I did feel weird about that. I mean, I feel like most people know Sonya Blade, like if you know anything about Mortal Kombat. So to like set her up as the person who's doing all this grunt work and like figuring everything out and piecing it together, but she's still not a chosen one.
Yeah, it's like, hey, if this chick works really hard, we'll let her break through the glass ceiling. Like it makes sense for someone like Kano, who's just a total bastard, and he stands for nothing. And for him to murder a noble person and get into the tournament, like that's great storytelling. But to take Sonya Blade, it's like in the Fantastic Four reboot with Michael B. Jordan, where all the boys got to go into space and get their superpowers, but then the Invisible Woman was just like kind of left behind, left out of the inner circle. Like I don't understand that choice.
Those are both good examples of bad choices. I think I definitely thought that, and especially because I know it's Sonya, but I'm like, oh, okay, when she kills Reptile, she'll get it. But then Kano kills Reptile, and then you have to wait so long before she kills Kano to get her thing. The good news is once she gets it, she doesn't have to go on any other journey. She just comes back and she's ready to go. But it seemed like a weird choice to sideline her like that, considering there aren't any other female characters that really speak.
Yeah, that could be the subtitle of this movie: Mortal Kombat: Weird Choices.
And the big weird choice to me is Cole. I think his name's Louis Tan, that actor. I think I like him in literally anything else I've seen him in, and in this movie I was just like, not only were you written to like the whole idea is that you suck, you're not good at anything, but like it just he didn't seem like he had the charisma for me to be like, oh, but I hope he gets over that. Like I was just kind of like, can't we just leave this guy behind? Like he's no good.
He wasn't great. I don't want to talk trash about the guy. He wasn't great, but I feel like most of the people in the movie weren't great. The characters weren't really fleshed out.
Okay.
The actors didn't really have much charisma. Um, and then to choose him as your lead, like there's just nothing noteworthy. Like if you said you'd pay me $1,000 to tell you 3 interesting things about him, I couldn't do it. He's just like this person who's there. He goes along with the story, but I never really feel like he's driving the plot in any meaningful way.
He isn't, and even in the big fight at the end, it's like there's just camera cuts to him trying to get his wife and daughter out of the ice while the actual like plot keeps moving on with Scorpion and Sub-Zero. Like they don't even put him in a position to win the audience over that way. It's kind of just like, well, no, he's got his own thing that he's dealing with that has nothing to do with the Mortal Kombat stuff.
Well, I guess his thing is he's a family man, but even for like an hour of this movie, you don't even get a sense that he misses his family. Like he fights to protect them at certain points, but if his thing is he's going to be this father and husband, you can kind of allude to it while he's in this other place. Like, oh, I'm fighting for my family. I'm fighting to save them. It doesn't come up. He's just there chilling for most of the film.
Yep. Yeah, I guess you make a good point. There's no point in bashing him because I think for me anyway, Kano was like the standout in terms of a character that you were excited to see when they showed up. I also liked Cabal in terms of just their dynamic together because I do remember that character, but I never remember him talking really. I think that like they did cool stuff with his speed and just he seemed like a funny guy as well.
When I played the video games, I would finish the game with every character because I was so interested in their story. Because right from the beginning, when it came out in like 92 and 93, Mortal Kombat always had this very rich mythology and there's all these secrets and Easter eggs, which in the days before the internet, like when you found out secrets about a video game, like that was a really big thing. And I lost my train of thought.
Well, I think I was talking about Cabal, and you were saying that you used to finish the game with every character, and I'm assuming you were building up to like learning about each character by
right. So
when
I would play the games at home, I love the world so much that I'd really dive into and try and find out every little piece. But then when I would play the games in the arcades, I wasn't so invested. So the characters like him, I might have played him once or twice because he looked cool, got my ass kicked, and then went back to Liu Kang. So I'm not as steeped in the lore of the guys who came through the later series. But I did want to know more about him. I really liked his banter with Kano, and I just wish the two of them were in like a road trip movie.
Yep. I agree. I think we said that off mic that you would definitely watch a road trip movie with those two. I think that would be worth it. They had the charisma. I feel like there were other characters that I thought they did a good job of just being stoic, like Raiden in particular. But yeah, those two were very fun to have on screen.
Okay, I'm gonna go on a rant about stoicism.
Okay.
In movies, we love cool characters. We love badass. We love James Bond, like getting into a fight and not a hair's out of place. He doesn't get dirt on his suit. But it's like cool characters are also the most boring characters. So Bond is legendary. We have an attachment to the actors who played him, and we think of our relationship to the series over time. But in most films, when a guy's too cool, they're not interesting. Like we tend to fall for the characters who are flawed, who are vulnerable. We don't like the guys who get kicked in the face and just smirk it off. We like Indiana Jones gets punched in the mouth and maybe spits out some blood, or he looks shaky on his feet.
Yeah.
And when you have too many stoic characters, it's like there's no humanity for us to relate to, right? And it's like you're just pretty much reducing these people to caricatures. You might as well be playing the video game because they're just so shallow.
Yeah, there was not a lot of depth. I think the closest I got, and I think it might be what you're talking about, that I already have some attachment to this character, was Liu Kang, and how they basically he tied his worth to Kung Lao, like, and he felt like, oh, this is the only way I'll be able to move forward is with Kung Lao at my side. And then when he loses Kung Lao, like I did feel bad for him because I think he does say like, oh, and what's left for me or something, but they don't really like sit with that. And it's not the movie for that either, but like I did feel like, oh, like that sucks for Liu Kang. I hope and then he gets to use his dragon power and you're like, yeah, see, he got over it. Good. That was a nice arc.
Yeah, I mean, I read some interviews with the writer of this film, and he said it's not like the MCU where you have several films to develop each individual character and you can give them some screen time before bringing them together. And this film really did, though, feel like a prequel to the real Mortal Kombat movie. Again, it's like it didn't feature all the most famous characters. We didn't get to the actual tournament. Um, and considering that they were actually establishing the brand so it can carry forward, I just think they did a terrible job of giving us reasons to really invest in the people in the film.
Uh, I don't disagree. I think that my excitement, like I thought they did a really good job with the trailer, and the big thing I thought was, which I think they only ever hinted at, they don't say explicitly, the thing is that rivalry between Scorpion and Sub-Zero. I was like, the way the movie starts and you're like, oh wow, like look at this centuries old feud. I was thinking like, and they're gonna keep building that up, and to kind of just leave it alone. Like it's not really a thing until Cole bleeds onto the kunai, and then Scorpion comes back. But it's not really like, I think he has a line of like, oh, I spent centuries in hell learning how to kill you, but it's not. It didn't feel like we got to like the fever pitch. It was kind of like, yeah, okay, good, he's back.
That opening 12 minutes is exactly what I'm talking about. It feels like it's ripped from another movie, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you get to know Scorpion as a father and as a husband and as a person, and you see his loss and you empathize with him and you see him suffer and you see him enraged, and it leaves you on the edge of your seat. It pulls you into the story and you want to see more, and then they just put it in the background to focus on this character who we have no attachment to, and they don't really bother giving us reasons to like him or even think he's cool. It's like, at least if he's a stoic badass, we're like, okay, well, this is fun to watch, but we meet him getting his ass kicked in the ring, right? I don't know, maybe it's supposed to be like Rocky, like we're supposed to see this underdog like find his inner strength and get his mojo back, but it didn't come off that way.
No, because I don't think anyone other than his daughter is rooting for him. Like, not that I think his wife needs to go to these things, but she's like, oh yeah, I'm not going to that anymore. Like I don't need to watch that. And it's not because, oh, like you win but you get beat up. It's just like, oh no, you just lose every time, so there's no need for me to go. And the guy who runs the things are kind of like, I don't understand why you're still here getting paid this little to do that in the ring. You're no good.
And he was literally born to do this, and he still sucks at it. Like, what's going on with that?
And I think it also is frustrating because during the training, everyone is doing better, and he just keeps sucking. He's never it doesn't even feel like incrementally getting better. I think it is, yes, once Goro is threatening his family, but even then, I think it's just that he got beat hard enough that his powers came out.
Yeah, if anyone should have just given him the beating of his life, it's Goro. Like, he should not have got his first win against Goro. That makes no sense.
I think didn't they say that Goro's the one that won the tournament like 9 years in a row, or 9 tournaments in a row?
I don't see why, because he sucks hard if he lost to Cole.
Yeah. I guess maybe they were just like, let's just have a Goro scene, but it did feel like, oh, he beat Goro and he's famously the bad fighter.
Yeah, but Goro should not be the throwaway character. Like, he's one of the boss characters. They should be leading up to the actual tournament, and there's this, it's like, guess what? You have to fight a half dragon, man. Like, that's exciting, and to just throw it away so this guy can, learn his powers, that's a weird choice.
Yeah, I feel like Reptile should have been the person that
that would be perfect. Yeah.
I think the other thing that felt for me just a little underwhelming was the Outworld stuff. Like, they kept cutting back to it, but it never felt like a progression. It just felt like, oh yeah, back to this, back to that, like to do these like exposition dumps. And I thought that they could have done a bit better with making me care about that before you bring out all the fighters like Cabal, who basically kicks it up a notch once they're speaking to Cabal. Because yeah, they do the Sub-Zero and Shang Tsung thing, and they do the is it Melina? I can't remember the character's name now.
One of those lady ninjas.
Yes, she does a thing, and I was like, oh, like we're doing this twice, and it always feels jarring when we cut to this, because again, that's time I thought we would be cutting to like Scorpion figuring out a way back to Earth to get back at Sub-Zero.
The Outworld stuff felt so generic. Like it didn't even look half as cool as, say, the Mandalorian sets, which they shoot digitally, right? Like it really did remind me of Star Trek, like not The Next Generation, not Discovery, but the original Star Trek, when they would just land on some desert world and the sky was a weird color and there was a lot of sand and rocks. It felt very empty.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's a good way of putting it, that those scenes felt empty and for multiple reasons. But if I will say what another thing I liked, because I feel like I'm being very negative, I did like that they gave you these matchups and they did create arenas, for lack of a better term, for people to fight in, where you didn't feel like, well, one of them has to like one of the good guys has to die, or else how does this tournament work? It was just, it's all them like needing to like beat that other person so that they can get their power, or at least so it felt like you could showcase people and not feel like it was empty that none of the good guys. I think Kung Lao does die, but like I thought they did a good job of that, of like still giving you the environments and the fights. I still would have liked if they got to the actual tournament, but at least you're not sitting there being like, how come they're not fighting?
Yeah, one of the interviews I read with the screenwriter said he didn't want to do another tournament where everyone gets on a boat and goes to an island, because it would just be fight, fight, fight and no story. But this film is still fight, fight, fight with no story. So I don't know why you had to deviate so much from, what works before.
I mean, so I spoke to a friend and I had seen some videos where I guess my friend was saying that like in the later games, it is way less tournament focused. It is, I mean, your point still stands. It's not like we got a lot of story out of not having a tournament, but that is how they get the story beats out. It's all the stuff leading up to the tournament. So maybe that writer was influenced more by that stuff. I think he still needed to inject more story. But yeah, I'm assuming he thought like, oh, people will be fine with that because the later games work this way as well.
Yeah, Mortal Kombat 11, by the time you get there, it's wild. It's, alternate dimensions and fighters from other worlds. It's none of this two guys just standing on a drawbridge punching each other. It gets pretty over the top.
Yeah, I wish I don't know. There was just as much fun as I had. I think it was because I know a lot of the character. I didn't know the winged demon woman who gets killed by Kung Lao. I will admit I did not know her, and I don't think I knew the sledgehammer guy. But other than that, I was like, oh yeah, I know Jax, I know Sonya Blade, I like them. So I just enjoyed whatever they were willing to give me from those characters.
Yeah, I'll admit, like just seeing these characters I grew up loving, it gave me so much joy. Like this movie isn't great. I had a great time watching it. And I think the thing it does, it's like if you're not invested in these already, it's probably laughably bad, right? Because it takes itself dreadfully serious until the moments it doesn't. And it's not funny enough to lean into the camp, but there's not enough story driving it to take it seriously if it's not some campy action flick. It's I don't know. Like don't get me wrong, we're being very negative about it, but I would pay like $50 if you could like walk me into a theater to see the sequel right now. I'd still do it. But
I would definitely pay to watch a sequel. I think that they kind of got the cobwebs off, and I feel like the next one will be good or better, I should say.
You would hope. You would hope.
Yeah, I can hope.
But I think this one it's okay to embrace nostalgia for the people who grew up with it, but you can't use it as a crutch, right? So if you have something like The Mandalorian in the last episode of season 2, when Luke Skywalker shows up, it's like that might not have made the most sense story-wise, right? Like we love Luke Skywalker, and no matter you put him in episode 1, you put him in episode 50, people are going to lose their minds. It's like, oh my God, it's Luke. We love Luke. But if someone grew up and they didn't watch Star Wars, they didn't watch the movies with Rey and Poe, and they just watched Mandalorian and Luke Skywalker showed up, that means nothing to them. And that's actually a bit of a letdown as a final episode, right? And I think Mortal Kombat has that same problem where it's like you see like Kung Lao just appear and he's like, I am Kung Lao. And it's like so definitive. But if you've never heard of him, you're like, who is this jabroni being so dramatic, right? The movie needs to strike a better balance of just, embracing what came before it, but not saying this is all we are. We're empty, but we look really cool.
I think what might have helped is if, even if Cole was still the bad fighter, he at least knew these people. He'd heard legends of these people, so that at least there's a character in the movie who was impressed when Kung Lao shows up, instead of everyone just being like, I don't, okay, great, I don't know who this person is. And then people in the audience who don't know Kung Lao also are like, nah, that doesn't mean anything to me. At least you might feel, because I guess that was the studio mandate, was you need someone to be inserted into this that the audience can experience the world through. But Cole isn't really that expressive, so it's not, you don't feel the wow when you need to, I guess, for introductions like that anyway.
Yeah, but it's like, why couldn't Cole just be Liu Kang and he's never heard of the tournament before, and then Raiden comes and finds him? Why do you have to invent a guy? It's not like it made this movie any more palatable for people who don't understand what it's about.
I definitely think that this movie doesn't help you if you're like, oh, what is Mortal Kombat? Because they don't ever actually get to it. But it's also, it's this new character. So for me, I'm feeling like, why is Liu Kang sidelined, or even Jax is sidelined, like he's physically sidelined because he loses his arms. And then I'm like, oh, like we're spending so much time with Cole, and I don't know why we did that, because he's not adding to like the excitement of everything. It's more like, come on, pick up the pace, get better at fighting, please.
Yeah. What was exciting was Sub-Zero, and he messed up Jax so hard that, like, I know Jax loses his arms and he gets metal arms, but watching Sub-Zero just like freeze his arms off and kick him down a pit, like, I really believed he was dead. I'm like, oh, he's never getting his metal arms. He's done forever.
No, I think, that's a real thing. Of, you see in the commercials that he loses his arms, but I never saw the kick into the pit, and I was like, wow, that was actually effective, like adding that, because I'm like, how is he getting back from that? Like that's going to do some serious damage.
Yeah, it's not like you could brace yourself with your arms either, right? And they have him hit something on the way down. It was so brutal.
Yeah, I thought that was well done. Yeah, and I think I knew going in, they said Sub-Zero is the main villain, and I just was like, oh, okay, like, but he doesn't get a lot more to do. Like, I think when he's there, it's good, but I just thought maybe there would be more to him. Like, even when he takes Cole's family, he does a movement where I'm like, oh, that seems like it's from a different movie, because that implies like they've got some kind of rivalry going on. Like he does like kind of like a show off thing when he takes the thing. And I'm like, that would have been better if they had more interactions and like Cole had built up some animosity towards Sub-Zero, instead of just being like, he's just another person trying to kill us.
Yeah, and the guy who plays Sub-Zero, Joe Taslim, is one of the baddest action stars on the planet. He does these crazy Indonesian action flicks like The Night Comes for Us and The Raid. It's like, you just got to let that guy cook. Like, he should be doing a Sub-Zero solo movie. Like, he was great in the film, but he still felt drastically underutilized.
Definitely underutilized. And I know that also, and I think Jackie Chan used to complain about this as well. They told him he had to slow down his fight moves when he was doing it. He had to slow down his choreography. So maybe, I mean, I've watched a lot of their press run online, and it seems like everyone is enjoying stuff, which is nice to see. But yeah, I can see maybe not feeling as happy if you have to slow things down from what you're used to doing in the other movies.
Yeah, I was impressed with the fight scenes. Like, again, I love those Indonesian martial arts films, and this film doesn't hold a candle to that. But by North American action film standards, it's pretty good, because usually these films, they're super choppy. The camera's always shaking. There's too much editing. You actually, the camera would just stay tight on these people. You could feel the impact of their hits. It wasn't too inventive or fancy, but it got the job done. Like, you felt like people were being brutalized.
Definitely. I don't have anything negative to say about the fighting because it works in this movie. It feels like that is the cohesive thing in this movie. I feel like, as the fight scenes, like they all feel like they're the way they need to be for this world. But yeah, I know we already talked about, but yeah, I think it's just making me think of like, oh, what a shame that like Sonya Blade wasn't one of the people. I don't know why I just thought about that again, but I'm like, oh yeah, I think it's because I was thinking like, oh yeah, there was all these cool fight scenes, but then it seemed like the women didn't have a lot to do in the first place. And I think they give Cole's wife a she gets to help fight Goro at one point. But yeah, it's the wife and the daughter who have the most to do outside of Sonya Blade, and those are the three women who aren't actually part of Mortal Kombat at the beginning of the movie.
Yeah, the movies have to do better. As a rule, I generally try and stay away from trailers and press stills before a movie, and I tried extra hard. So I literally knew nothing about this except that the raid guy was going to be in it as Sub-Zero, and I started watching the movie, and I'm like, who are these people? Like, I didn't recognize anyone, and I thought this was going to be like a big summer blockbuster kind of movie, and like the effects are good and it's expansive, it has cool sets and costumes, but it's like I was shocked that there wasn't more name recognition in the film. Like, but then again, it's like these characters were so generic. I wonder if they had brought stronger actors or more recognizable actors, if that would have covered up some of the rough patches, or if, you know, someone like Sonya Blade was a lost cause, no matter if they brought Meryl Streep in to play her.
I gotta imagine bringing Meryl Streep in for that would have definitely kicked this up a couple of points for people. I do. That's a good point. I think I know Cole, not personally. I know him from like he was in Iron Fist.
Warrior?
He's in Deadpool 2. I have watched Warrior. I don't think I've seen anything else he's done, but I've seen those things. So I knew Cole. I know Jax because I do watch. Well, I used to watch Supergirl, and I know Kano because he was on that Don Cheadle show.
House of Lies.
Yes, and he is in Superstore, but I've only seen one episode with him so far. But yeah, like so, and I always thought like, oh, that's interesting. They got him for Kano, and I guess it was just so that there could be an Australian playing an Australian. But he ended up being one of the better parts for me. that ended up working for me. But yeah, maybe. Oh no, sorry, I did know Liu Kang because he's the Black Ranger in the latest Power Rangers movie.
Yes. Again, it's like I had a blast watching this film, but 24 hours when it was finished, like I could barely remember what had happened. You know, like I know the extreme moments, but I can't think of the characters or their motivations or anything like that. Like if I did not write my review within like 6 hours of seeing the movie, I wouldn't have been able to do it. It's just, it evaporated from my mind.
I was afraid of that. So I did do a lot of watching them talk about the movie. And yeah, I still don't know major plot points. I know that I just know I remember thinking, oh, this is cool if it is like Scorpion getting back at Sub-Zero, which they didn't really work with. And then I do remember being surprised by the connection with Kano and Cabal and the way they turned Kano. I thought that was interesting. Like I was like, oh, so he's just gonna be a mean good guy all the movie. And then when he changed, I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, that's pretty Kano of him. That makes sense. So I was happy about those two things, but yeah, I don't really remember basically anything about Liu Kang other than he lost Kung Lao. I don't really know what Kung Lao's deal is. He gets a great scene, like when he cuts the woman in half, but I don't really know what's going on. I couldn't tell you anything about Raiden. Yeah, I know him from the Thor movies, and I'm like, oh, okay, cool.
But at least they didn't cast a white guy to play Raiden this time, so we have that much.
I think I appreciated, especially for casting of Sub-Zero and Scorpion, Raiden, characters like that. Like I think Liu Kang has always been cast as East Asian, but I appreciated that they went East Asian with those characters as well. I just, yeah, I think Shang Tsung and Raiden were the ones that got hurt the most of the characters that I know, because I didn't feel like Shang Tsung was that big of an issue.
Right.
Kano was more of an issue, and they did position Sub-Zero as like the main antagonist. But I was like, oh, like you got Shang Tsung and Raiden here, and like even when they like approach each other near the end, it's not like a full-on fight. I thought like, okay, cool, they're gonna fight, and then it was kind of just like, no.
Yeah, with Shang Tsung, there was never a sense of menace. Like as campy as the first movie was, like when that guy walked into a room, you're like, oh shit, like anything can happen. With this Shang Tsung, I don't know. He's just like a dude spouting dialogue. It's like, okay, get to talking, bring your fighters out, and let's get on with it.
Yeah, I think that's, and maybe it is because when it's his tournament that people you can do cooler things with him, even if he's not going to fight all the time. Like he can rig things for certain fights and stuff, and you can focus on him more. But because they never actually get to the tournament, it's all about how he needs to like cheat before the tournament happens. It is kind of like, well, yeah, I guess send out the people to cheat for you.
That is absolutely ridiculous, but it's also maybe my second favorite thing about the movie, that he's like, my guy's like, we won 9 tournaments in a row over, I don't know, hundreds of years. He's like, let's fix the last one though. Well, I guess they explain it that there's a prophecy that might disrupt him, but I just like how quickly he's on board with, we're just going to cheat and murder people before they get to the tournament.
Yeah, I think especially this is where I thought they could have done more Sub-Zero. Like even if Sub-Zero came back, he's like, honestly, the guy that you're worried is going to bring back Scorpion, he's an idiot. Like he'll never be able to do this. You don't have to worry about him. Like I could just go kill him now, actually. Like I guess that is what they do, but it doesn't, like, it's not character driven. It's just like I'll just go kill the last living thing of
well,
Scorpion.
There's one part I don't understand is when Sub-Zero first shows up to go after Cole. What is he doing? He's like making it snow. Like he's using his cool powers, but is he trying to intimidate him? Like why didn't he just show up and murder that fool?
He could have shown up, and because that's the first scene, right? Like he shows up and he takes out everybody that's still around who can fight. You don't get to see it, but you know he did it. He didn't show up and like make it snow and throw ice everywhere so people start scattering. He very effectively took out who he needed to take out. And you're right, he should have done that again. But I guess they weren't ready for Cole to be able to fight at that point, because then you are forcing Cole to at least fight, and the audience believe, oh, okay, yeah, he beat him that one time, but you know, Sub-Zero will come back for him now that he respects him as a fighter.
Who are we kidding? He doesn't respect him.
No.
He never will.
At no point does he respect him. He doesn't respect anybody.
Sub-Zero took a man's own blood, froze it into a blade, and stabbed him with it. Like,
loved it.
He respects no man but himself.
Yeah. Do you think they're gonna bring his brother into the second one?
They have to, right? I mean, I think they signed. I heard they signed someone for like 4 pictures in this series. So
it is Joe tells him, the guy who plays Sub-Zero, he's signed for 4 movies.
So it's not like they started out with like 4 characters and there's a lot to expand on. Like they already started out with about a dozen characters. So, you know, I think they're just going to start bringing people in from everywhere for the second movie.
I hope. Well, I mean, the big tease at the end is Johnny Cage, which
is Johnny Cage that big a deal to you?
Not to me, but I know that when I was talking to people about the movie, they were like, oh, I hope Cole turns out to be Johnny Cage. Or people were just like, I hope I hope Johnny Cage is in it. I didn't miss him, if I'm being honest, but I think that also is because I don't really care about him. But yeah, I think, and I don't think anyone who watches this will be like, oh, this would have been better if Johnny Cage was in it. But it is a nice tease to be like, we're getting there. Don't worry about it.
Who do you think would make a great Johnny Cage?
I don't know. Like based on how they're casting, I guess it's just going to be some person I don't know. But what do you think about that?
Ryan Reynolds would be a good. He's probably too famous for this movie at this point, but I feel like that
I would love it if it was Ryan Reynolds. I would love it, but I know people would groan at that casting.
They always groan until they see the movie, then they love it.
But yeah, I would love to see. Yeah, he does Deadpool, so I feel like he knows how to. They know how to. I know. Yeah, he knows how to do fun fight stuff. So yeah, I would love that.
He's smarmy enough. You need someone real cocky and arrogant. Yeah, he's like the master of that. He owns that corner.
But yeah, I'm gonna have to just steal your answer. I don't I don't have a way to top that or even match it. I like Ryan Reynolds for Johnny Cage.
Is there
Um,
anyone else you'd like to see in the movie who hasn't been in there yet? I'll give you mine. I would love to see Baraka.
I definitely thought he was going to be in it because they showed him in the like they showed a picture of him in the trailer. But yeah,
They did?
I would like in the trailer. Yeah,
Oh,
in the trailer there's a picture of him. Um, so yeah, I would love to see Baraka. I think I want to see more of those ninjas. So like if they bring smoke into it, I would love that. Um, yeah, I think it's just more of those ninjas. Like I know people don't like them, but I did like kind of like Cyrax and those like robot versions of the ninjas. Like
yeah,
I
very
think that would be
sci-fi.
cool. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, I think they did say the focus for the next movie is having more female characters. So
They
I
got a
guess that
lot
means
to
like
choose from.
Shiva. Yeah, that would be good. But yeah, I'm hoping next time is the actual tournament.
It's got to be.
I think they did a good job of being like, no, it's different this time, and now they can just be like, and here's the tournament.
I understand them like wanting to forge a bit of new ground, but the Mortal Kombat movie was also like 25 years ago, so I think it's okay now to go back to the tournament right off the bat.
Mhm.
But we'll see. We'll see what directions they can take it in. I mean, this is a series. It has magic. It has sci-fi. It has fantasy. There's a military element. So you could pretty much the world is your oyster. You can do all
Mhm.
kinds of cool things.
I mean, I hope. Do you think they'll get? They must be able to get a second one off of this, right?
I haven't checked the weekend box office. I imagine it did well. It probably got a lot of streams on HBO Max.
I did see that it got. I don't remember what movie they compared it to, but in 3 days it did more than another. I think it was King Kong and Godzilla. It did more
Yeah,
streams than that in 3 days than that movie did in 5 days.
yeah, and that movie kicked ass. So yeah, we're
Yeah,
getting a sequel for sure.
because I as much as I like talking about the negatives, I would like to see this cast and whatever this version of Mortal Kombat is continue, because I think they'll have time to get better. Maybe if not the second, maybe the third one. But like, I think it would be interesting to see these people grow into the characters and have time to actually have character moments.
Yeah, I mean, when you're dealing with franchises, the second film is generally the best one, right? They get all the heavy lifting out of the way, and then the second one they can just kind of dive right in and do some more interesting things. And then it's usually by the third or fourth
Mhm.
installment where you start to get that bloat, and, like too many villains, too much mythology. So, I mean, this movie wasn't a great movie, but I had a great time, and I'm telling you, I'd line up right now to go see the sequel. I might complain about
Okay.
that one too, but I feel like they ironed out the kinks with the first one.
Yep, I feel the same way. I think that they hopefully this is like what they wanted to do, and now they can feel comfortable being like, and now we can play the hits somewhat and
Yeah,
not feel like
especially
people.
if people were streaming it and it earned lots of money, I think the writer and director is going to have a bit more creative freedom to play with the characters, and then they
Mhm.
can kind of deviate from the studio notes.
Yeah, I would hope so. Um, did you in this movie, not including Kano or Cabal, did you have another character you thought was cool?
I just like seeing Goro. I
Okay.
really like Puppet Goro in the '90s movie,
Hmm.
and I like this one. I just I love his physicality. I love the way he fights. I wish he was a character and just not some brute they threw in to get his ass kicked. But I really did like seeing the Goro fight.
I was surprised at how he was just used to fight Cole, because he has a very it's in. I know you didn't watch the trailers, which is probably a good idea, but like in the trailer, he has this very cool like exploding out of somewhere moment. Which now seeing the movie, I get where they got it from, but it's like, oh, like I thought it was gonna be like a tease, but the fact that he's in it and for a full fight, I'm like, oh, I just want more of him now. Then
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I also in the original movie, I think my favorite moment was when Reptile came out, like Ninja Reptile, and he had
Mhm.
his fight, and I was really looking forward to that too. So they kind of offed Reptile in this one, but I wonder if they'll bring back, Reptilian cousin. The he fought so fast. He was throwing like punches like they were coming out of a machine gun, right? I was like really pumped to see that, and it was just like this beast running around invisible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that they used that he can do camouflage stuff. I like that, but I was kind of like, I would have liked a bit more of like the humanoid version and then the reveal of Reptile, but still fun, and you get the fun Kano. That is the line from the trailer when Kano takes the heart. I hate to be negative, but I did find it weird when they would say their like lines but not in like a fight. Like Kano wins, but it's not during the tournament, or flawless victory, but it's not during a tournament. I was just like, it's fun, but I wish it just made me want the tournament even more because I'm like, then those lines make sense. I did like when Liu Kang just kept sweeping Kano's leg, and he's like, "Is that all you do? What a cheap shot!" I'm like, that is a nice callback. I do like that. That's some funny stuff.
Only a gamer will get that.
Yeah. So I was really happy they had stuff like that in there, and my wife Pauline was just like, "Are they going to say back B?" I'm like, I doubt they're going to say back B, but like, I'm sure something will be referencing that.
Yeah, the only thing that was missing was like a botched fatality.
Yeah,
you know, you just start squatting and throwing punches at the air, and then you run out of time, and the guy falls down.
They could have done that with. I mean, they still could do it with Cole in the next movie, but I do think that is a perfect way to endear the audience to Cole, is he tries to do a fatality and it doesn't work out.
That's his whole fighting style.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think for me, yeah, I mean, I've Sub-Zero is always my favorite, so I was happy to see him, but I do think the Jax had some funny moments, I guess. Like, okay, yeah, these motherfuckers work and stuff. Like after he does his fatality, so I'm interested to see if they keep him going in other movies.
I love that he teamed up with Sonya, and they were tracking like the Mortal Kombat people like a serial killer, and they just had all the notes posted on a board. That was and then when the place burned down, they were complaining like, "Oh, my research is gone." It's like, lady, you don't have a USB drive? You're not up in the cloud?
That did seem like, oh, like that's cool to visualize it, but certainly you would have a backup of some sort.
Yeah. That's all part of the fun.
Yes. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Did you want to even rate this movie? I think it's just we liked it. It's not great.
I gave it a fresh on Rotten Tomatoes. I think it's at about a 57% right now, so just a bit under fresh. If I had to give it a number score, this is tough. I would say it's probably a 6.5, but with my love and affection for the characters and the nostalgia factor, I would give it a 7.5.
Interesting. I factored in all of my love and nostalgia. I think I still came out at a 6. Maybe now that you said 7.5. Now that you said 7.5, I feel terrible. I will give it a solid 6.5.
Well, you have movies that are just impeccable from beginning to end. You're thrilled, you love the characters, you're drawn into the plot, you're on the edge of your seat. But then you have movies that aren't great, but they have great moments. Godzilla versus Kong is not a great movie. Couldn't care less about the human characters, but that moment when Kong just cold cocks Godzilla in the face on the battleship, like that's a 50 out of 10, right? And that just bumps up the average of the movie. Like I can see a movie that I love that never gets me as excited as about 7 scenes in Mortal Kombat, right? So that's why I say for me, just like seeing Sub-Zero freeze somebody's blood and catch it and use it as a weapon, like again, that's like a 35 out of 10. And it brings the movie up.
Moment. It is. The problem is, I should have been like you. I watched that trailer obsessively, and that is like the big high point of that trailer. Like, the whole trailer
gets
builds
in your
up
head.
to that. So then, like seeing it in the movie, it's still cool. But I was like, I wish I didn't watch that scene so many times ahead of this. I'm not saying that made it not cool when it happened. I'm just saying, like, I wish I had that moment you had of like watching it in context of the movie for the first time, especially because they start with the two of them for the movie. I'm like, I can't wait for him to like stab him with his own blood later in this movie. It was something I was looking forward to the whole time.
Yeah, it was pretty dope.
Yeah, we were talking about. I think we came to the same conclusion, but we were talking about where this kind of ranks loosely in the other video game movie pantheon.
It's a sad list. I was looking at it on Box Office Mojo, the highest grossing video game movies of all
Mhm.
time, and so we had Lara Croft Tomb Raider was the number one movie. It came out June 15th, 2001, and it was still the number one movie in May of 2019. So
Wow.
Detective Pikachu, which is not a classic by any means, surpassed it, and last year Sonic the Hedgehog beat it. So you have two movies from the last 2 years up there, but it was Lara Croft Tomb Raider for a long time, and I think Angry Birds is at number 4. Like it is not a
I keep
legendary genre.
forgetting. I keep forgetting about Angry Birds. I've only ever heard that like it's up there. I'm assuming they meant from grossing wise, like how much money
Yeah,
it made.
worldwide box office.
So
I
I
mean,
haven't seen any of those.
uh, box office is by no means a sign of quality, but generally, if something is of quality, a lot of people will go to see it. And in the video game genre, it's a bloodbath.
I thought for sure the Alicia Vikander Tomb Raider would have beat out the Angelina Jolie one, but I guess yeah, not. I guess I assume that because it's getting a sequel, I'm like it must have made money. I haven't checked on it, but it must have made money.
No, it's not high up on the list either.
Okay. So I have seen both Angelina Jolie Tomb Raiders. I have seen Detective Pikachu and Sonic. I still haven't seen Angry Birds. I don't know if I ever will, but yeah, that's an interesting top 4.
Yeah,
It's a very
Rampage with The Rock rounds it out at number 5, which I can understand, but again, like not a great movie. It shouldn't be top 5 on any list.
no, it shouldn't. I to be fair to that movie, I've never seen it. I like The Rock, but I was just kind of like, I don't know if I can go with him on that ride. That one doesn't look like it's for me.
Full disclosure, I've seen about 34 movies of the 48 movies on the top 50, the
Okay.
top 48, I should say. And yeah, it's a short list. Like Mortal Kombat 1 is up there for me as an all-timer, and there's not much after that.
I do like the first Mortal Kombat. But yeah, I feel like this is definitely the best right now if I'm thinking about it. Um I feel like at one point people said the Silent Hill movie was like just quality wise good, but I don't know. I haven't seen it.
Yeah, that one did not work for me, but I seen it probably 15 years ago. I might have different feelings now.
Okay. Yeah, I something tells me it's not that good because it's not like something that people talk about all the time. I think maybe people were surprised because it had the video game stink on it, and then it probably wasn't terrible.
So this film screenwriter is working on a video game movie adaptation of Space Invaders, which is one of the first mainstream video games. It came out in arcades in the early 80s.
Mhm.
And that game is literally just sliding a ship across the stream at the screen, shooting things that are coming down at you, right? Like there's literally no plot. So I'm very interested to see how you take something that's so shallow and, kind of forge it into a meaningful story. But I think maybe because there is no story, it gives you a lot of different directions you can go off in, right? It's kind of like
Like the
they
Lego
turned
movie.
even the board game Battleship, right? Like, how do you make a
Right.
movie out of Battleship? They actually incorporated, blindly shooting missiles by a grid system, saying like E7 into the film, and then you can pretty much let your mind go crazy from there. So I want to see what this guy does. I like he clearly has a love and an understanding of Mortal Kombat, which is on display here. So I'd like to see him just let his freak flag fly on a sequel or something out there like Space Invaders.
Is this because I feel like I saw a couple writers. Is this the Russo or Kala?
Russo.
Okay. Yeah, I'd like to see what else. So Space Invaders.
Yes, weird choice.
I would hope that he sees what you see, where it's like it's not like people are going to be upset if there's not a certain character in it. So you kind of have a freedom as long as people are invading from space. People will be happy, I guess. So yeah, I'm hoping it gives them a chance to have some fun callbacks, but also create something interesting.
Yeah, for the life of me, I cannot figure out why video game movies are just so bland. I mean, you look at something like Pirates of the Caribbean, or Tomorrowland from like Disney. They're just based on rides, and you make these really fun movies. You create a cool mythology. How can you not just take a concept like, you know, Super Mario? Like you can make Alice in Wonderland with that. You can go in so many crazy directions. And how have they just not nailed it in 30 years? Like when are we going to get the Avengers of video game movies? We're way overdue.
Can't wait, because something tells me when it was Super Mario, someone was like, well, we can't do anything crazy, even though I've only seen it twice in my life. I watched it in theaters as a kid and was like, and then tried to revisit it as an adult and was just like, this is like, if they were trying to, like, if they were scared of video games, like this is still pretty out there stuff. Like it's not like, I don't feel like it's that palatable. It's not like they made it like relatable.
They took a strange thing and made it even more bonkers, which I don't understand. It's not like you were kind of softening the edges for a mainstream audience. You made it even more peculiar.
Like they would have been better just being like, yeah, it's the video game. Like this, they tried to make it seem kind of realistic, but then it was like, I don't know. For me as a kid, it was just off-putting. And like, at least as an adult, I'm like, I guess this is, some might find this interesting. Like it's a different style, but yeah, I think maybe there was like a fear of, oh, we're doing a video game, but hopefully you're right. Like people look at stuff like the MCU and be like, you can still do some interesting stuff with this.
Yeah, I think it's just going to take one. It'll take one to have massive success, and then they'll take it a bit more serious, because you have these properties like Zelda. They've never done Zelda. That could be an amazing Lord of the Rings kind of movie. They've never done Metroid. You know, Final Fantasy is another. They've made different Final Fantasies, but each game is so different. They take place in different worlds than the games before it, but they have common themes. But you can make an amazing Final Fantasy film. So, you know, it's going to happen. It's just don't hold your breath waiting for it to happen.
I will say, if they say something like we're doing a Metroid movie, I'll probably get excited. I feel like that is a good way. Even Zelda, like, yeah, if you want to go out there, like, and doing sort of like Game of Thrones style or something like that, like I would, yeah, I think they could do that and people would enjoy that. Or even if they wanted to lean into like the cartoonish elements and just tell a good story. But yeah, I think those might be the two that if they announce them, I'm like, something good has got to come out of this. Because I remember thinking, oh, they can't ruin Assassin's Creed, and then they said, oh, it's mostly going to be outside of the world. It's going to be in the real world. And I was like, oh, that's how you ruin that movie.
Yeah, you had Fassbender. You had was it Jeremy Irons was in there?
Marianne
and
Cotillard.
Yeah, how do you mess that up?
Even Michael K. Williams was in it, and it's just like, oh, this is a boring movie.
Yeah, it was just so dull. It was oppressively dull.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was the one where I stopped hoping. You know, like I would go to these movies opening day pumped to see them. Now I just I try not to give, short of Mortal Kombat, I don't get my expectations up for these anymore.
It was hard for me. Like, even when I saw the casting for Mortal Kombat, I was like, this seems like it's going to be good. And I think I was thinking about, oh, they didn't just cast like generic white people. It seems like they're seriously taking the casting. Like, they're taking the casting seriously. So I was excited by that. And then I love trailers. I watched the trailer and I was like, oh, this is going to be amazing.
I'm very interested to see how this movie holds up the second time I watch it. Because like I try and go in to every film saying this could be my favorite movie, and then quickly it kind of proves that it's not going to be. But now that I know what it is, I'd like to see if maybe I enjoy it a bit more. I'm not as picky with it, and when I know it's just like big stupid fun.
I thought I was gonna rewatch it before we recorded. I didn't, but I think, yeah, if it comes out on Crave or something like that, I'll probably watch it again. And like you, I already know what I'm getting. I don't have the thing of like, oh, I hope this is good, or hopefully this doesn't disappoint. And I already know where it's going, and I could probably just enjoy it on that.
Yeah, it'll be fun.
Well, yeah, I think that's that. We talked about Mortal Kombat. Thank you very much for doing this. You are definitely someone I've wanted to have on the podcast for a long time, and I'm glad we were able to make time to do that. So thank you very much. This is the time where I just say thank you for listening. We are on thatshelf.com. There's other great podcasts like Bad Gay Movies, Black Hole Films, Changing Reels, Composers, No Budget Nightmare, What a Great Theme Song, and more. So please head on over there. You can find Victor's writing. He's always got great takes and just great ways of seeing movies. So you can read his writing there. You can listen to those podcasts. Our particular podcast is on that shelf, as well as tdfeverything.com/spoiledrotten. Our Twitter is at tdfspoiled. Our email is spoiledpodcast@gmail.com. We're on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Radio Public, all sorts of things. So please go there, rate, review, subscribe, and share with your friends. Victor, I would love it if you could let the audience know where you are and how they could follow you and get in touch with all the great things you're doing.
Sure. I'm on Twitter and Instagram at Victor J. Stiff. I'm on Rotten Tomatoes as Victor Stiff. I have 250 reviews up there. And I have a YouTube series I just started out called Dope Black Movies. And you can find that on my Victor Stiff YouTube channel.
Excellent. Yeah. Thank you very much. That's that.
Thanks so much for the invite. It was a fun conversation.
This has been a TDF Everything production, brah.